Okay, welcome everyone to Power BI for Government Community of Practice number 4. Just a reminder again, please do mute your microphone. If you have any questions, there's a lot of us in the meeting, so please do just drop them in the chat for us. Just a little bit of housekeeping before we do kick off. So these events are run via Teams webinar, which I'm still learning. I'm getting better at it. Thankfully, we didn't have to invite everybody into the session. But as there's a lot of us, just raise your hand if you have a question, and then I'll ask you for your question. And this session is being recorded, so just note that as well. I will share it on the DataTel YouTube channel for anyone who misses the event, or if you want to share the event with someone later on. The Power BI for Government Community of Practice is all about user stories, learning, and Power BI updates. So I'm going to give a little bit of an update in what's happened in the last 3 months since we've caught up. And we have 3 user stories today showcasing how Power BI is being used within a government organization. Just a reminder, there is a LinkedIn group, and let me grab the link for you. Let me drop it in the chat. Great to see some communication happening in the LinkedIn group. I'd love this to be a place, if you have questions, if you want to ask things or know things, please do join the LinkedIn group. It was good to see some conversations here by Simone in terms of some ArcGIS issues in Power BI that we were able to solve, but love for that to be a place where we can collaborate. So I've dropped the link in there. If you use LinkedIn, please join the group. Love to see some questions answered. And I do promise I will answer any question that's dropped in that group. A little bit about myself as the sponsor of this event. DataTel is a business that supports government in terms of Power BI end-to-end, especially Power BI training and development. I do have a Power BI training for government course running at the end of the month. So if you are interested, please do come along to that. But very excited to announce that I finally have 2 new courses up and running. Sorry, I'm getting a lot of feedback. If anyone's the mic on, I just want to turn that off. But I do have the Power BI data storytelling course. So this is a half-day workshop that will be running at the end of June. So everyone can create a Power BI report. How do I create a Power BI report that answers business questions? So we'll step through the 6 C's of data storytelling. I'm going to give you a business requirements document, show you how to build up a brand. So there's a lot of fun and very hands-on half-day course if you're interested in that. And an advanced course as well at the end of June. So if you're interested, really getting the nuts and bolts of Power Query, best practice for data modeling, DAX, come along to that. I'll send you links at the end of the session, or please do ask any questions if you're interested in these additional courses that we have running. But coming up next quarter in August, for our 5th Community of Practice session, I will be giving again a quarterly update, but we do have Frank from Yarra Trams. He's going to be showing us a project management dashboard, and PMO, always an interesting space. Combining that with Power BI should be an interesting presentation. And we have Raymond Boone from City of Bend over in the States, a little bit of a Power BI guru if you know him on LinkedIn. He hasn't told us what he's going to present, but I'm very interested to see what gems of knowledge he'll be revealing for us next quarter. And we do have 1 open slot. So if you are working on a Power BI project, you have something Power BI related, please do reach out. Love to see what you're doing. Love to learn from what you're doing in the space of Power BI. So let's jump into the first section. I'm just going to give a very short wrap up in what's happened in the last 3 months. So just giving some key highlights in some Power BI features, and then we'll jump into our presentation. So the first thing I want to talk about is in February, we got a update in terms of the mobile view. So here I'm in the view ribbon, and if we go to the mobile layout, now, generally, I don't really build that many mobile views because it was so limited before. But now what you'll see in the update is we have flexibility in terms of changing font sizes, labels, etc. So here I'm in the mobile view, and I can see I can go into the y-axis. And if for a mobile view that was a little bit small, I could increase the font size. So we weren't able to have this flexibility before. So it's good to see. So can I increase? That did increase. that we have the flexibility in the mobile view. So that's good that we can do these types of things. The other thing that I want to show you, as you're probably all aware, is the visualization pane has got an update. So now no longer the buttons down here, we have them at the top. And if I click on a chart, what I can see is we have the categories in here. And what this is preventing, obviously, is a bit more flexibility, but the double scrolling that we used to have where we would open something up and scroll and then scroll and scroll. So really good that's improving that. And every month they're continuing to improve this based on feedback. So that's really good to see. In March, we got error bars. So if I have a look at error bars here, so just to show you error bars, so on a line chart, if you go to this add further analysis into your visual, you'll see this option here, which is error bars. And you need to put an upper and a lower based on a formula or data from your report. And you can see here that we do get, let me just zoom off that, you can get upper and lower based on, your error allowance. So error bars is something new that's come out. So if that's something you want to leverage as well. And there wasn't much last month, but I will highlight the tooltip drill through. So this is a report drill report tooltip. So obviously you can make your own report tooltips in Power BI, just pointing to another page. But now we have this white box. So if you remember before, we had the ugly black box, this one that made it a little bit smoother with the white. And what it allows is to drill through straight away here. So drill through, drill up, drill down is all available now. And this is good because end users never used to know that there was a drill through option there unless they right-clicked. They don't need to right-click anymore, it's just there. So if you haven't turned that on, you can turn that on for old reports, but I think that is now generally available for you. So that's my 4 kind of highlights in the last quarter. So drop that down. All right, first up, we have Anthony. Anthony, I'll let you take over the screen and share it for yourself. And I'll let you introduce your topic as well. So thanks, Anthony, for presenting. If you want to take over, I'm going to stop sharing and let you share your screen.
Thanks, Warren. I'll just bring up my presentation. Okay, so today I'm going to be talking about my operational performance reporting dashboard suite that I built on Power BI. And then, I'll be showcasing that first. After I run through the slides, talking about why I went and built the project to begin with, how I use it in my work, and some of the technical challenges I faced in the build. So, jump through the slides, and I'll try and keep this to about 10 minutes or up. And bear with me if I'm a little bit sluggish today. I haven't been feeling the best in the last couple of days, so I'm just going to power through. Okay, so I'm a member of my name's Anthony Creswell. I'm a member of the Regional Rail and Southern Cross Station Contract Management and Governance team at the Department of Transport, which is formerly Public Transport Victoria. Covering off our team covers off the B-Line, Australian Rail Track Corporation, XPT and Overland Train service level agreements and contracts. I roughly spend about 50% of my time on developing operating agreements and the contracts, the latest one being the B-Line service level agreement, which was signed off between both parties in December last year, and the other 50% working as a performance analyst, monitoring the operational, financial and asset performance of the operators, making sure they are meeting their contractual KPIs and adhering to other governance contract requirements. I just want to point out that I'm not a full-time BI analyst or developer either. And our main KPIs for B-Line are punctuality and reliability of service and customer satisfaction index. I have qualifications in commerce and applied statistics. So why did I develop the dashboard in the first place? Our previous month-end operational performance reporting that was circulated was only presented at a high level, which is network-wide level only, and was purely descriptive in nature. We were wanting to develop a more diagnostic reporting tool, which would allow us to get more granular insight on what performance issues were arising across the network and be able to truly understand the driving factors and root cause of those issues. By having better reporting available in quicker time, we were better prepared in raising concerns to the operator over poor performance at the monthly passenger experience governance forum meetings. We were also wanting to move to a fully automated reporting solution to cut down time spent at the end of the month producing the reporting itself, leaving more time to undertake analysis and generate insights. The visualizations in the previous month in reporting were produced in Excel. This involved dumping data sets out of a legacy system called Transport Information Online and pasting them into Excel, which was a highly inefficient process. The Power BI visuals in the dashboard are directly reading off the data tables stored on SQL Server, which is the back end of our PAS OPR system. These tables are currently being migrated over to our Amazon Web Services data warehouse environment. The old reporting was limited to reporting of trends on overall number of incidents, lates and cancels in absolute numbers that didn't take into account the fluctuating number of services between months due to occupations on the network for maintenance works. We wanted to be able to make more accurate month-on-month, year-on-year, 3 and 12-month average assessments on performance by using normalised data to overcome this factor, i.e. percentages for punctuality and reliability loss, and proportions, ratios and rates like incidents per 1,000 services run. Users. So currently I publish to the cloud. So I've got my own, my team's got an application. So all users or all people within the department can access my report, but the main core of users is senior management within Rail Services Division and Network Operations Divisions. And I have about 10 to 15 regular users come on and view the reports. Some of the development challenges I've faced, the main one being incorporating my own custom date dimension table into the data model and configuring the right settings in Power BI Desktop to allow the retention use of time intelligence quick measures. So yeah, I had all kinds of troubles doing online tutorials and stuff, trying to get those settings right to be able to continue to use my quick measures. Yeah, so it took me a long time to fix those issues. Retaining the same legend colors attributed to the incident cause category values from one month to the next month. So that was happening in Power BI Desktop as well as the cloud. In my pie and donut charts, I was finding every month, it's still the case, that the colors change for the category values consistently from one month to the next. And I've tried a few things to overcome it, but yeah, it's still an issue for me. For pie and donut charts, the automatic grouping of incident cause categories to an other category value where the amount for those incident cause categories falls under the predetermined threshold, either manually defined or automatically defined by the Power BI system. So we'll see that in a moment when I flick over to the dashboard, and I'll talk about that a bit more. And then keeping continuity of daily scheduled automatic refreshes of data to the cloud using a personal gateway. So yeah, I struggle with that because if I find that I'm not online during the time of the scheduled refresh, it kind of blocks or stops the automatic refresh from occurring. So I'm always having to then go back in and manually refresh. So yeah, I'm not sure how to quite overcome that issue. And then future users for the dashboard, we want to have the ability to monitor monthly and cumulative actual performance against the targeted levels contained within each of V-Line's performance plan initiatives to see if they're making good enough progress in meeting their targets. And we also want to move to an evidence-based target setting approach and get to the stage where V-Line's contractual performance measures targets of punctuality and reliability are based upon the long-term levels of loss for those measures across all incident cause attributes, balance against forward-looking operational issues and constraints and opportunities faced by the operator implementing a 100% top-down method. So that would involve starting at 100%, taking away the historical loss for those different incident categories, for punctuality loss, for example, or reliability loss is a better example, and then adjusting for potential uplift in performance due to various factors. And one example is could be we're celebrating the retirement of our classic fleet, which is our really old rolling stock, and they're known to be quite faultful and compared to our newer velocity fleet. So if we know we're taking on more newer train vehicles that are less likely to break down, we're likely to get some performance uplift there. So we can adjust the figure back up because of that factor. All right, I'm going to switch over now to the dashboard itself. Show you some of that. So I hope everyone can see that. So this is my landing page. When someone clicks on my application on the cloud, they come to this page here, which is a high-level summary of how the network's performing. Our two measures are punctuality and reliability. These are weighted averages of the individual lines, as you can see in this table here, and it's weighted by the number of services that delivered on those lines. And then we have the top 5 causes of lates and cancels on the network, the days above the targets. So I'm not in a place to tell you what the actual contractual targets are for those two measures. What I can tell you is our public reporting target is 92% for punctuality and 96% for reliability. And then you see in the donut charts up the top here, we have 92.5% for punctuality, so that equates to 7.5% loss, and this is the breakdown of the 7.5%. And it's quite flexible in how users can use this dashboard. For example, they can click on a line like, say, Geelong here, and then there's a whole lot of cross filtering that goes on, and then they get the summary for this line. Click off that, back to the normal, and then, for example, they can click on the infrastructure category up the top here. Once again, a bit of cross filtering will be going on, and then they can see the top lates, top causes of lates for that category. And another thing I can do, which is usually useful or very useful when it comes to writing my performance briefings. I write a lot of probable parliamentary question briefings. So where a minister could be asked in question time on why is a line performing so badly or whatever, and I update on patronage figures and that. So I put those briefings together, and where this dashboard comes in really handy for that is, for example, we see velocity fault as the top cause for the month. I can click on there, and then with the cross highlighting that goes on, I can see out of that 1.3% loss for train fault category, 0.7% was attributable to velocity faults. So that comes in really handy when I quickly have to put briefings together on performance. And then I've got other filters down the side here, page filters that go further, and you can look at time of the day, so AM peak, PM peak, Sunday service, for example. I've got service direction, up and down, so ups from away from the city, downs towards the city, and then I can drill down, well, go down further and look at it by where is it? By different routes, for example, city to Ballarat or whatever, city to Geelong. So I can go all the way down to individual service. So it comes in quite handy if we get some correspondence in from the public with someone complaining that their train may be running consistently late over several days or whatever. We can quickly examine why that's the case. I'll jump over to the next page. I'm going to show you. I'll just take these filters off. So this is my 12-month trend for both punctuality and reliability, and the stacks show the breakdown of the loss. Basically, on the line chart, you've got the contractual target, the public target, the 12-month average is the blue line, and then you've got a rolling 3-month average there. And you see the big blip here, spike in September, and that was due to mass cancellations, unplanned cancellations from COVID hitting V-Line really bad, and a whole lot of their driver pool was off work, either with the virus itself or in isolation. So yeah, that's why you see that big spike there of 39.2% loss in the month of September. Yeah, so you can drill down further. For example, we can look at the month of April. You might get a day by day breakdown. And then we can drill further into the individual stacks, say for the 29th, and get an assessment on all the different causes of loss for that day. So that's quite handy. Next screen I'll show you is our top 10 incidents for late services and the 12-monthly trend for those. And same with the cancels, the top 10 incidents for cancels and the 12-month trend. And up the top here in the right-hand corner, we've got the both corners. We've got the magic quadrants. So what I'm trying to do here is look at the number of unique incidents that occur on the network and the knock-on impact of those incidents on service delivery and delay on the network. So looking at this bottom right-hand corner chart, we've got, you don't want to see the bubbles in this top left-hand corner because you have very few unique incidents happening and massive number of cancels as a result of those incidents. So we don't want to see bubbles in this top left-hand corner box. The users of the dashboard actually really like these magic quadrants. That's the feedback I've got so far. So yeah, you can just see how devastating, for example, signalling faults are for cancellations. Yeah, with a ratio of, that's up 5 to 1. So for every incident that happens, you get 5 cancels resulting. So that's a lot more damaging than, say, a locomotive fault, where every locomotive fault we have is 2 and a bit cancels. So nowhere near as devastating the impact. So yeah, we really try and make sure that there's nothing constantly staying in this top left-hand quadrant, and making sure if there is, that management actions are being attended to correct that issue. I'll just jump over to the next page, which is one of my feature pages. And this feature page is on trespassers on the network, which is a constantly evolving problem for both operators, being MTM, Trains, Melbourne, and V-Line. The RGIS maps here are just taking a bit to load up. So the top chart here, the top map in the top left-hand corner is showing the bubble size is showing the number of unique incidents on the network, and the bottom map here is showing the services impacted by those unique incidents. So we can see the knock-on impacts once again from the unique incidents to delays on the network and cancers on the network. We can see that there's more incidents that actually happen on the regional network outside the metro boundary compared to on MTM's network for V-Line services, but the actual service delivery impact is greater within the metro area than the regional area itself. I've used spark lines here to show the trends for individual suburban centres on the network, which show the total services impacted throughout the year and the number of incidents between 2019 through to 2021. And the top line chart here shows the growing problem, which is punctuality and reliability loss are on the climb from trespass incidences, and the number of incidences themselves are actually on the increase. And then I've got a polar chart here which shows the breakdown. Further, I'll just expand this out. So we've got 5 corridors on the regional network: the southern corridor, the northeastern corridor, the northern corridor out to Bendigo and Swan Hill, and the western corridor out to Ararat and Ballarat. So we can see by the blue line here, the light blue line, that the number of incidences are quite significant on the southern and eastern corridors compared to the others. And the knock-on impact to service delivery and delayed trains is the greatest on the southern corridor compared to the other corridors. And then I've got an orange line here which indicates the number of self-harm related trespass incidences. And once again, they're quite prominent out on the eastern corridor. So we share this knowledge and intelligence with the operator, V-Line, and they look into this kind of stuff as well. And then from this, we can decide where to allocate scarce resources in terms of trespass panelling or fencing on the network to help prevent those trespass incidences from occurring in the first place. And that's probably all I have to show with my 10 minutes. I've done plenty more feature pages on different topics like staff errors and all that, but given them 10 minutes, that's all I'll be showing for today.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. I mean, and considering it's not your full time to work in this BI space, you've really done some great work, and I love how you're giving examples and actually answering business questions, like with those examples, especially that scatter plot, and also that one there, how there's a business problem and you've used a chart that actually really answers that. So some really great work. To answer one of your questions, in terms of personal gateway, try not to ever use a personal gateway. Try to get IT to install an on-premise gateway for you, if you can, because as you mentioned, whenever your device is not on, it's not going to update. So try to have a look at that. Any questions, Anthony? It was a lot of comments on great feedback. So from Selena, in regards to trespassing, is this per 100,000 per population, i.e. are there more people south and east?
No, this is not normalised. Yeah. So it's not normalised by the size of the population in those centres. No.
Excellent. Any other questions? I'll just scroll up and see if I missed any. I think we answered most of them. Dion's just asking, what was your personal BI journey? So I suppose how did you get here?
Yeah, I started off in my last job at LeasePlan Australia. I was a fleet risk analyst there, and I started using, towards the end of my time there, SAS Visual Analytics. And I built a few dashboards there towards the end of my time there. And then I hadn't used Power BI till I left that job, and then I used it for a few personal projects. One being the analysis of the 2018 Victorian state election results in 2014. I'm a member of the political party. I won't talk about that too much. And another personal project is I'm pretty big into the fantasy football stuff as well. So I have a few dashboards for that at home, and I built them on Power BI. And then, this is the first project in a work sense I've delivered using Power BI.
Yeah, excellent. Once you get fantasy football and data, I can tell definitely a data nerd there. Excellent. Fantastic. Thank you. All right. So next up we have Russell. Russell's from Banyule Council. Russell, I'll let you introduce yourself and a little bit about your role, and then I'll stop sharing. Feel free to share your screen.
Great, thanks, Warren. I'll just wait for that to pop up on your screens.
Yep, we can see that.
Excellent. So I'm Russell Clapham. I'm from the Banyule City Council in the northeast suburbs of Melbourne. My role is Senior Continuous Improvement Process Lead in the CI team. I joined local government mid last year after having somewhat of a career in the private sector, and really enjoying being able to contribute some hopefully very helpful reporting in local government. So I'll be taking you through benefits realisation reporting, and just to sort of frame it up a little bit, the reporting itself is part of a broader model. I want to give you a bit of a flavour of that model because it's quite important in the way that it connects to the concept of data and how we originate data. But as a little bit of an overview, at council in recent years, it was realised that we needed to be able to essentially quantify outcomes from projects and initiatives. And the reason really is to have visibility of this to support decision making, and also as a feedback loop for contributors to projects and initiatives. So when we talk about benefits, really that's those positive outcomes. From a council perspective, we think of them in 6 different ways in terms of the categories. So customer experience and staff or employee experience are probably fairly obvious ones. We also measure from the angle of things being easier and faster. So in that sense, productivity type metrics. Of course, the ever important environment and making sure that we're measuring our contributions to making a better world. The financial component, equally important as anything else, and risk and how we are managing risk as well. So in the past 12 months, we basically set out to create a model governed by a framework and that framework is designed to support how we capture benefits data and feed it into reporting that is designed to be fairly simple to use. So the presentation here, I'll take you through that, what it looks like over the next few slides. So just a little bit of a preface. The reporting itself is not highly technical or meant to have a high level of sophistication. We really want it to be as accessible and meaningful as possible to the users. So this is just a little bit of a snapshot or preview of the main landing page. I will give you a live demo of it shortly, but I just wanted to kind of give you that visual to frame up some of the context of what I'll talk through in a moment. What you're seeing on screen is that example and a little bit of a look and feel of some of those valuable bits of information that we want users of the report to be able to take away from it. These are dummy figures, by the way, for representative purposes, although we have been using and testing it with internal projects in the last 6 months in particular as well. So I'll just touch on the framework very, very quickly because I don't want it to be the focus of what I share with you today. But the framework is a document and it sets out the model about essentially the principles and acts as well as a guide for staff so they can capture data, which I've mentioned. The key points or key takeaways are that it explains the definitions, provides a step-by-step guide and includes examples, so real examples that relate to different areas of local government and the sorts of projects that we embark on. So a bit of a visual of the reporting model. This is up to the point from the project team members' perspective where they're collecting and validating data for the metrics they've selected for their projects. They're engaging with the framework and working through to understand the high level of success that they're seeking to measure. They use the Excel tool. It's a really simple template. It's not sophisticated. It's essentially a data collection format that allows them to collect any data that's not automatically available through core systems or reporting from a council perspective. An example is, say we wanted to measure rework rate of customer applications, then if we don't have that available from systems reporting, then the template guides the users to collect that information and then basically spits out a figure, that figure being, in this example, a rework rate figure. From that point on, the users engage with Microsoft Teams, and this is where it sort of all comes together. We have what we call the Banyule Benefits Portal. It's a channel within Teams. For context, at Banyule City Council, we have essentially access to the full suite by default of Microsoft 365 and Microsoft applications. And so we've got the ability to integrate the Power BI published report within a Teams channel. Some of you may have experimented with that in the past, and it's quite useful when your staff are used to engaging with that platform. So that's why we went with that option. So a quick preview of the benefits portal in Teams. Again, I'll show you a live demo in a moment, but I just sort of wanted to frame this up. The reason we call it for highlighting it in Microsoft Teams is, again, to show you and explain how we originate the data into the report itself. It's essentially, or a lot of it anyway, is manually collected information. And so we need a place for a wide net of users in different areas to be able to capture and a place to put that info. So the users are obviously internal staff members of council. It's not open externally. And what I'll do now that I've sort of given you all that scene setting is I'll show you what it looks like in the Teams environment. So just bear with me as I stop sharing the slide and share a live version of the portal. All right, so what we're looking at is I've just jumped into an example project that I've loaded up. What we can see here is the typical lists view that is supported by SharePoint in the back end. Because we're not dealing, with hundreds, tens or hundreds of thousands of records, the A being a Microsoft app and B being fairly accessible and easy to use, it seemed like a fairly straightforward choice to go with lists. So the lists is accessed through what we call the Annual Benefits Portal. There's a benefits portal page within there and tabs that are at the top of that page. So one is the benefits portal, the second is the benefits report. And so that benefits report, which I'll click on in a moment, is the Power BI report that is linked in within this. I'll call it a shell. These individual records are examples, and I'll go into the first one just to show you. This relates to a benefit around customer satisfaction. To sort of kind of colour that in, customer satisfaction might be a measure for a particular project that we want to measure the change in as we deploy efficiencies or invest in services and so on and so forth. So the users enter a fairly simple record. There's about 10 fields or so here that are important, and these fields filter into the filters within the slices in the report that I'll show you. They've got the ability to choose particular metrics. Those metrics link back to those categories I mentioned earlier around customer satisfaction, financial, easier, faster, employee satisfaction, etc., etc. So users have the ability to add and edit records. They also have the ability to create new ones as well, but not delete. So if there was a new benefit or outcome that was identified for a particular project, then they would just go through this form view, which I'm sure you're all familiar with, in some way, shape or form, and select the benefit that they've selected for their project. I won't actually save that in now, because I think you probably get the gist and keen to see the report, how this all sort of links together. So, Warren, can you just confirm that that's the report itself has popped up on screen?
I am still seeing Teams.
Teams. All right, just switch that over.
Yep, seeing your report now.
Great. So I've just popped out this tab within Teams just for visibility of this presentation, but this is what the user would see when they click that tab within the channel. And so the idea is it's got that feeling of being integrated from a data capture perspective and a reporting output point of view. The slicer on the left-hand side is reflecting projects. If for individual benefits, we wanted to drill down into particular teams and categories, we could do that as well with these little plus and minus buttons. But typically we expect that viewers of the report will want to see at a project level the anticipated expected benefits of projects. Within each of these sort of tiles, I'm using multi-row cards that just output the actual measure or metric name and the associated measure that has been captured by the users. I'll click on a few examples because a user might look at this and go, okay, well, we've got an example project that has an expected cost reduction that's cashable of $5,000. What does that mean and where is it coming from? So if I want to tunnel through to that, then it actually takes to the categories within that, or the metrics within that financial category. And so we saw that there was an expected saving of cash, and that really is just quite simple, the difference between the baseline measure and the expected measure, and hence why the project summary aggregates that information together and and spits it out on this page to the user. And that's really all there is to it. As I mentioned, it's not highly sophisticated. Anthony's sort of blew me away with the level of detail in that report, but this one really doesn't require it. You're probably noticing as well, as I just put up a couple of examples, you can see that there's baseline and anticipated measures, which are decided by project teams and essentially ratified by a project sponsor. That happens, outside of the portal entry, but is part of the governance framework. And there's actually room in here for the final outcome as well, because it's very good to say, well, we expect customer satisfaction to lift from 7 out of 10 to 8.5. We might have captured this one via survey and expect we see an uplift, but what did it actually end up being? So at the conclusion of a project or an initiative, the team that has been engaging with this process is expected to cycle back and actually recapture that final outcome. And so really it answers that question, did we get what we expected to get? Were there any changes? And if there were changes, why? And so that therefore links into the decision-making cycle, or even if not decision-making, then, that idea of being a learning organisation and learning from it as well. So I know that this is a little bit different, and I've sort of gone beyond just the Power BI type report, but I wanted to give you that upfront insight, because if you're working with manually collected data, all systems won't always give us what we want. So how do we ensure that we've got a governance framework and tools that support our people to be able to engage with reporting? This is still pretty early. It's less than 12 months old. We're still testing it and evolving it. I have no doubt there'll be changes. Some maybe in terms of the detail we capture, some may be cosmetic as well as we get feedback. But it's been very interesting and rewarding so far. And thank you for listening. Hope it was useful.
Yeah, excellent. Thanks, Russell. I love seeing examples of end-to-end use of the Microsoft suite. So I think that's really, really great that you're able to show that. Quick question I see here, someone, Paulina's just asked if she can look at the financial page. Did you demo that one?
Sure.
Yep.
Yeah. So on the financial page, there's 3 sort of main metrics that are defined within the framework that basically tell the organisation if there's been changes. One of them, just for context, I'll be really quick, I'm conscious of time. There's cost reduction, which is cashable, that's real and tangible. Cost avoidance, non-cashable. If you're wondering what that is, it's a financial expression of time saved or productivity. So there may be, for example, teams or processes that drive time savings that are then reinvested into other services. We wanted to make it really clear that we capture that time saving in that example, but we also express it financially so that it holds weight and it demonstrates the value of that change. And then I think revenue changes speak for itself. But they're the 3 main metrics that feed into this report.
Excellent, thanks. Yeah, great example of a clean report. I love the concept of a landing page at the start, especially of multiple pages, which give a little bit of information and reference. But yeah, clean and simple. Thanks, Russell. For the sake of time, maybe there's lots of questions in the chat. Russell, if you're happy to jump in there. Anthony, I think there was some in the chat for you as well. And maybe that'll save us a little bit of time, and everyone has reference to that chat.
Right. Thanks.
Thanks, Russell. Actually, what I'm going to ask, I always forget to do this. If anyone's happy to put their screens on and I'm going to take a screenshot, I always forget to do this every quarter and kick myself. So great to have over 100 people here talking about Power BI and government. So if you're happy to share your screen, and I'll take a screenshot, and then we're going to jump into our last presentation of the day. So thanks everyone. Let's turn on the screen. I'll just grab a screenshot now. Done. Appreciate it. Thank you. All right. Last one. I'll share my screen. Got Neil from the City of Greater Geelong. This should be interesting. So a little bit of a demo. APIs, Power BI, always an interesting space. Neil, I'll hand over to you if you want to do a little bit intro to yourself and if you want to share your screen.
Great. Can you see my screen?
Yes, I can see your screen.
Great. So probably my background's not all that relevant in this context. It's a bit of a how-to. I work with City of Greater Geelong. We're doing a lot of work around data management and dashboarding. Today I wanted to show some data sources that we're using. So Open Datasoft and the Geelong Data Exchange, which can be useful for others in this call. How to connect to those using an unauthenticated API, so no username or password, and retrieve a JSON file. So you can see that going back into Power BI. And then how we can turn that into something that we're more used to for reporting, so table-based format. What I won't be showing is how to build the dashboard today. So just to quickly jump across, Open Datasoft is an open source platform which is used by a bunch of organizations around the world to ingest and then make data available to people who might want to use it. So it does have a backend that can load data. I think it's a French company, so I can search on there for something like population, and you'll get a whole bunch of results back. And then you can filter those down. If you only want English results, then you'll see that you'll get population for England, there's a New South Wales population, etc. So do go and share. I do have notes and slides that I'm willing to share after this. At Geelong, there is an implementation of this. It's essentially just a front end. You can find the same data on the central site, but what I want to show today is pulling in some weather data and how we'd pull that into Power BI. So I've searched for weather. I've got 4 data sets. I'm going to pick this first one. Sorry, I'm talking kind of quickly because I want to get into the meat of this as I can. So looking at this individual data set, firstly, you've got some information that tells you about it. You can view it in the table format, so you can kind of see whether that's what you want and what you should expect from it. Map and analyze. If there's some predefined visualizations, they'll show you what those are. That's up to the platform administrator. And then export. If you want a one-off export, this might be a good place to go. Get a CSV out and straight into Power BI or Excel, and you're good to go. But today we want something that you might want to get a recurring input into your dashboard. So we click on the API tab, and you get a bunch of options, basically selecting what options you want to enable on this particular data set. The most obvious one here is the number of rows you want to return. By default, it's 10. I might change that to something slightly higher. Oh, has my keyboard gone to sleep? It's not very. Okay, so I'm changing that to 100. And then down the bottom, it'll generate a link, and it'll say, you can use this link to get that data back whenever you want. So I'm going to copy that. I can click on it and see what that data is going to look like. Horrific, but computers love it. It's a structured data set. And just on the top right of the screen here, I'll try and zoom in a bit. No, that's not going to work. You can see what this data is going to look like. So there is, if I jump back to my Power BI, and we'll kind of into my PowerPoint. In the table view, I saw a row of data that I want that shows me the sort of thing I want to get out of this file. And this is how it's represented in that JSON response. So I can see that if I want to get out for this Miranda Crescent detector of temperature with a temperature of 23 and a humidity of 51, that this is where that data is. And so how do I then find that within this kind of JSON thing? So a JSON is actually a structured data set. It's very flexible, but it's kind of a layered data set. And you can see there's different levels of indentation here. So you've got a pair of brackets and it goes in, and then we've got something called nhits, and then something called parameters that then has another indentation. So at the top level, I've got nhits, parameters, and then I follow that line down. I've got something called records. So I'm going to follow that tree down. So if we jump across to Power BI now, we can see what that starts to look like in Power BI. So I'm just going to use my get data option. I'm going to paste in when it pops up. I'm going to choose the web option, and then I'm going to paste in the link that I got from the from that website before. So go to other and web, go connect, and it'll ask me for a URL. And then so I just paste that in, and I can see It's got that link. You can do advanced, but we don't need to do that today. Now this is, do you remember I showed that screen that looked fairly horrific? That's what Power BI is going to get back, but it's going to do a few things to tidy that up for me out of the box. And so you can see here, I've got n hits and then something called parameters. And then there's a number of subfields of parameters, because what Power BI has done, it's created some steps, but if I go back before it's done that expansion, we have n hits, parameters, records, and then something else. And just to refresh our memory of that. That's n hits, parameters. So what we're doing, we're seeing that top level, but I want to get down from top level down to records. Then I want to go in one level, and there's a list of records in there. And then within each of those records, I want to find something called fields. So firstly, I'm going to scroll across till I find that field. So there's something here called records. And it's listed as a list because the record is a list. So the first thing I'm going to do is click on that. And now it's showing me that there's 100 records because that's how many rows I asked for. But I need to then do some steps. Now, to be honest, I've used a bit of trial and error here. I've got a full set of like a document that you can follow these steps if you want to. But this is currently not in a table format, so I'm going to go into transform and to table. And you'll see this changes slightly up here. So it's asking me what delimiters. I'm just going to use the default options. And now I've got this little split icon that it's saying that your list has turned into a whole lot of records. So I'm going to use this split icon to show me. So we're now at this level, and each one of those records is one of these things. I'm going to use a split to see, and I'm hoping I'm going to see dataset ID, records ID, fields. So I'm now at this level. So if I click this little split icon on the top, there we go, dataset ID, record ID, fields. Now, if you recall, it was fields that I wanted, so that's the one I'm going to select. And now it's telling me, here's column 1.fields, and I'm now seeing, do you see how fields has got like a whole lot of subfields in there? So I want to get down to device ID, temperature ID, and I know that I actually want, I can get rid of battery, I can get rid of period, I don't want everything in there. So I'm going to open that up, and what I'm also expecting, if I just look here, is that one of these things is going to be actually a list in itself. So device location isn't just a simple value, all the other ones are simple values. So I'm going to click on this split icon again, and it says, okay, what do you want to take out of that? So I think I said I can drop out battery and period. I'll keep everything else. Now I start to see something that actually looks like the data that I want. So got a device ID, I've got my temperature. Actually, I'm just going to go back and just uncheck one thing here. Just going to uncheck this use original column name as prefix, because it makes all your column names really long. It'll put column 1.fields in front of everything. So, okay, so now I've got just device ID, temperature. So I'm starting to get similar. I've got one more thing in there, which is device location, which is it's still a list. So again, I'm going to click that split icon to delve in and see what's inside there. This time I get the option to extract values. And it's saying, okay, you're going to get all the values that are in that list and put them together. What do you want to put between them? I'm going to choose a comma because I want to then be able to pull them apart again. And then the last thing I'm going to do is go split column under this home menu by a delimiter. And I'm going to tell it there's a comma. So you can see in that field there, I've got like a latitude and then a longitude, so 38. So I click OK. And now it's given me two fields. So this has been like a, and then there's a few fields where they're not properly populated because they've got an error. They basically have a blank location. So what I will do is remove the empty rows there. No, don't want to do that. I'll remove where the device name is empty. So I'll get rid of these errors. So now I've got a fairly clean data set. I do need to go take that into Power BI and turn this into a latitude field, turn this into a longitude field. And I do also need to tell it that my temperature, for example, is a number. But other than that, I'm pretty close to having a data set. And just a kind of, here's one I prepared earlier. This is what you can then do with this. With that data, you can have a kind of a drill down data set where you can look at a particular sensor and see what it's what it was detecting over time. And you might want to pull that together with, say, your engineering services, or where you're getting lots of requests. Maybe it was related to flooding, maybe it was related to certain weather conditions. So, but once you've got this worked out, how to connect to the API and then how to pass a JSON response, it kind of opens up any data set that's on those platforms I showed you earlier. So again, I've got the instructions, I've got the template, happy to share. So yeah, hopefully that's useful for someone.